Welcome to Monk's Temple. Sit quietly for a moment. Not because you have to. Not because someone told you to. But because something inside you, something soft and ancient, already knows how to be still. It's just been waiting for you to remember. Today, we're not going to give you 10 rules to fix your life. We're not going to promise you happiness in 3 easy steps. Instead, we're going to sit with a question. A real question. One that has haunted human beings for thousands of years. Why do we suffer? Not in a dramatic way. Not the kind of suffering we see in movies. But the quiet suffering. The restlessness that creeps in on a Sunday evening. The feeling that no matter what you achieve, something still feels missing. The way you can be surrounded by people and still feel utterly alone. The way you can get exactly what you wanted, the job, the relationship, the house, and then wake up the next morning feeling empty. That's the suffering we're talking about today. And here's the twist. Buddhism doesn't see that suffering as a mistake. It doesn't see it as a punishment or a sign that you're broken. In fact, the Buddha called it the first noble truth. Not to depress you, but to wake you up. Because if you can name the problem, really name it, then you're already halfway to freedom. So let's name it. The problem isn't your job. It isn't your partner. It isn't your past or your bank account. The problem, according to Buddhist wisdom, is craving. The endless, exhausting, restless energy of wanting things to be different than they are. Wanting the pain to stop. Wanting the pleasure to last. Wanting approval. Wanting control. Wanting to be somewhere, anywhere, other than right here. And that craving? It's not your fault. It's been conditioned into you since you were a child. But here's the good news. You can learn to see it. And once you see it, it begins to loosen its grip. That's what we're going to explore today. Not as a philosophy to believe in, but as a practice to live. Not as something you add to your mind, but something you uncover that's already there. So take a breath. Settle into your body. And let's begin. Imagine a river. Not a wide, famous river like the Ganges or the Mississippi. Just a small, quiet river in a forest you have never visited. This river has been flowing for thousands of years. It does not know it is a river. It does not think about its purpose. It simply flows. Around rocks. Over roots. Through valleys and past small villages. Sometimes fast. Sometimes slow. Sometimes barely a trickle. But always moving. Always becoming something new. Now imagine a leaf falling onto that river. The leaf does not decide where to go. It does not fight the current. It does not complain about the rocks or the twists in the path. It simply floats. And because it does not resist, because it trusts something it cannot name, it eventually reaches the sea. You are that leaf. And the river is life itself. But here is what is strange about human beings. Most of us do not float. We thrash. We grab at branches hanging over the water. We try desperately to paddle upstream. We spend years, sometimes entire lifetimes, fighting the natural flow of life. We are convinced that if we just try hard enough, if we just plan carefully enough, we can control where the river goes. And then we wonder why we feel so exhausted. Why we feel so lost. This is the first teaching we need to sit with today. Life is not happening to you. It is flowing through you. And the moment you stop fighting the flow, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop suffering. Not because your problems disappear. but because your relationship to those problems changes completely. Let me tell you a short story. A monk was sitting quietly by the side of a road, meditating. A man walked by, angry and agitated. He saw the monk sitting there so peacefully, and it enraged him. "Why are you just sitting there?" the man shouted. "Do you not see how much suffering there is in the world? Do you not care?" The monk opened his eyes slowly. He looked at the man with no judgment, only gentle curiosity. "What would you have me do?" the monk asked. The man threw his hands in the air. "Do something. Fight. Change things. Get angry." The monk smiled softly. "I was angry once," he said. "It did not help. So I stopped." The man scoffed. "That is your answer? Just stop being angry?" The monk shook his head. "No. That is not the answer. The answer is to see that anger is a wave. And I am not the wave. I am the ocean. The wave rises. The wave falls. But the ocean remains. That is the difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is the leaf fighting the current. Responding is the leaf floating, aware and flexible and strangely free. So here is a question to hold gently in your mind. When was the last time you reacted to something, and later wished you had responded instead? Do not judge yourself. Just notice. That noticing is the beginning of everything. The beginning of waking up. The beginning of coming home to yourself. Let us talk about desire. Because desire is everywhere. It is in the advertisements you scroll past without even noticing. It is in the conversations you have with friends about who just bought what. It is in the quiet, persistent voice inside your head that whispers, "If I just had a little more money, a little more love, a little more respect, then I would finally be happy." That voice. You know the one I mean. It has been with you for as long as you can remember. But here is what Buddhist wisdom points out, gently but clearly. That voice is lying to you. Not because it is evil. Not because it wants to harm you. But because it is confused. It genuinely believes that the next thing will finally satisfy you. And so you chase it. You get the promotion. You buy the house. You find the relationship. And for a moment, a brief, shining moment, it works. You feel relief. You feel pleasure. You feel complete. And then the feeling fades. The satisfaction evaporates like morning dew. And the voice comes back. Louder this time. "Okay, that was nice. But what about the next thing?" This is what the Buddha called tanha. An ancient Pali word that means thirst. Not thirst for water. But a deeper thirst. A thirst that can never be permanently quenched because it is not really about the water. It is about the thirst itself. The mind has learned that wanting feels like progress. So it keeps wanting. Even when you already have everything you need. Let me tell you a story. Once, a powerful king ruled a wealthy kingdom. He had palaces, jewels, servants, and land as far as the eye could see. But he was not happy. He could not sleep. He could not eat. He was suspicious of everyone. So he called upon a wise Buddhist teacher who lived in a small hut outside the city walls. "Teacher," the king said, "I have everything a man could want. So why am I so unhappy?" The teacher looked at the king for a long moment. Then he bent down and picked up a small pebble from the ground. "Your Majesty," he said, "if I gave you this pebble and told you it was priceless, would you be happy?" The king laughed. Of course not. It is just a pebble. The teacher nodded. Exactly. You are unhappy not because you lack things, but because you have attached your happiness to things that are, by their nature, just pebbles. Gold. Power. Praise. These are not bad. But they are not stable. And anything that is not stable cannot give you lasting peace. The king frowned. Then what can give me lasting peace? The teacher pointed to the king's own chest. That which is already there. Before the gold. Before the crown. Before the title. The awareness that is reading these words right now. That is not a pebble. That is you. And it has never been unhappy. It has only been covered by the craving for more. That story is not saying you should give away all your possessions. Unless you want to. That is fine too. But the point is deeper. Your deepest self is not hungry. It is not lacking. It is not waiting for the next thing. That self is already complete. The only reason you do not feel that completion is because you are too busy looking for it in the next thing. So here is a simple practice. For the next 24 hours, every time you catch yourself thinking, I will be happy when. Just pause. Do not argue. Do not judge. Just notice. And say to yourself softly, ah. There is craving. That is it. You might be surprised what happens. The craving does not disappear. But something shifts. You are no longer inside the craving, being tossed around by it. You are watching it from the shore. And from the shore, the waves look much smaller. That shift is the beginning of freedom. We do not like uncertainty. It is not our fault. Our brains are wired to predict, to plan, to control. Certainty feels safe. Uncertainty feels like danger. So we spend enormous amounts of energy trying to make life predictable. We ask ourselves endless questions. What if I fail? What if they leave me? What if I make the wrong choice? What if I am making a terrible mistake right now and I do not even know it? We chase certainty like a dog chasing its own tail. Exhausting ourselves. Never catching it. But here is what Buddhist wisdom gently suggests. What if the uncertainty is not the enemy? What if the not knowing is actually a doorway? Think about it for a moment. When you already know how a story ends, you stop paying attention. You skim. You skip ahead. When you are absolutely certain about tomorrow, you stop being present today. Certainty closes the mind. It makes you rigid. It turns life into a performance rather than an exploration. Uncertainty, on the other hand, opens the mind. It makes you curious. It forces you to pay attention because you do not already know what is going to happen next. Uncertainty is not a flaw in the design of life. It is the design of life. There is a famous Zen story about a master and a student. The student asks, "Master, what is the secret to your peace? You never seem anxious. You never seem rushed. What is your practice?" The master says something very simple. "I eat when I am hungry. I sleep when I am tired." The student laughs. He thinks the master is joking or being deliberately obscure. "But everyone does that," the student says. "That is not a secret. That is just ordinary life." The master shakes his head slowly. "No. When most people eat, they are thinking about 100 other things. They are planning tomorrow. They are replaying yesterday. They are scrolling through their phones. They are not eating. When I eat, I eat. When I sleep, I sleep. That is the secret. That is the whole teaching. But it is not easy. Because to eat when you eat means to stop trying to control the future, even for just 10 minutes. To sleep when you sleep means to stop replaying the past, even for just one night. It means to trust that this moment, right here, right now, is enough. Not because it is perfect, but because it is real. And reality is all you ever actually have. Let me tell you a longer story. A parable that has been told for centuries in Buddhist communities. A farmer lived in a small village. He had one horse. One day, the horse ran away. The neighbors came to him and said, "What terrible luck. You must be devastated." The farmer said, "Maybe." The next day, the horse returned, and it brought with it 7 wild horses. The neighbors said, "What incredible luck. You must be overjoyed." The farmer said, "Maybe." The next day, the farmer's son tried to tame one of the wild horses. He fell and broke his leg. The neighbors said, "What awful luck. Your poor son." The farmer said, "Maybe." The next day, the army came to the village to draft all the young men for a war. But they passed over the farmer's son because his leg was broken. The neighbors said, "What amazing luck. Your son is safe." The farmer said, "Maybe." This story is not about being passive. It is not about pretending that good and bad do not exist. It is about recognizing that you never really know what is going to happen next. The thing that looks like a disaster today might become a blessing tomorrow. The thing that feels like a blessing today might reveal itself as a disaster next week. Life is too complex, too interconnected, too mysterious to judge in the moment. So instead of spending your precious energy judging every single thing that happens as good or bad, what if you simply met each moment as it comes? With curiosity. With openness. Without needing to label it immediately. That is the practice of not knowing. And it is incredibly freeing. Because most of your suffering does not come from what is actually happening. It comes from your story about what is happening. The story that says, "This should not be happening." The story that says, "This is going to ruin everything." The story that says, "I cannot handle this." But here is the truth. You can handle it. You have handled everything that has ever happened to you so far. Not always gracefully. Not always easily. Sometimes you fell apart. Sometimes you cried. Sometimes you made mistakes. But you are still here. And that is not luck. That is the natural resilience of awareness itself. So here is a reflection for you. Think of something in your life right now that feels uncertain. Something that keeps you up at night. Something you are desperately trying to figure out. Now ask yourself this question, softly and gently. What if I stop trying to figure it out? What if I just let it be uncertain for a while? You do not have to have all the answers. In fact, the answers usually come only when you stop demanding them. So take a breath. Let the uncertainty sit there. Do not push it away. Do not grab at it. Just let it be. And notice what happens inside you. You might be surprised. Beneath the fear of not knowing, there is a strange and beautiful freedom. The freedom of being exactly where you are, without needing to be anywhere else. We have talked about craving. We have talked about uncertainty. We have talked about the trap of more and the illusion of the self. But none of this is meant to stay in the realm of ideas. The Buddha was not a philosopher in the way we think of philosophers today. He was not trying to build an elegant system of concepts for people to believe in. He was trying to help people stop suffering. Right now. In this life. Not after death. Not in some future rebirth. Today. And he found something incredibly practical. Something so simple that we overlook it every single day. The breath. You see, the breath is always here. Right now, as you listen to these words, you are breathing. You did not have to remember to do it. You did not have to try. It is just happening all by itself. And that is the quiet miracle. In a world that is constantly changing, your thoughts changing, your feelings changing, your circumstances changing, your relationships changing, the breath is a steady anchor. It does not judge you. It does not ask you to be different. It does not care if you are having a good day or a bad day. It just comes and goes. In and out. Constant. Faithful. Always available. And here is the extraordinary thing. If you pay attention to it, just pay attention, without trying to change it or control it, something remarkable happens. Your mind begins to calm down. Not because you forced it to. Not because you wrestled your thoughts to the ground. But because you finally gave your mind something simple and real to rest on. Let me tell you a story about a woman who learned this from a monk. A woman went to see a Buddhist monk. She had not slept properly in weeks. Her mind was racing day and night. She had tried everything. Medication. Therapy. Exercise. Diet changes. Meditation apps. Nothing worked. She was exhausted, desperate, and on the verge of breaking down. The monk listened to her quietly. He did not interrupt. He did not offer advice. He just sat with her, present and still. When she finally finished speaking, he said something very simple. Tonight, when you lie down in your bed, do not try to sleep. Do not try to relax. Do not try to do anything. Instead, simply count your breaths. 1 breath in, 1 breath out. 2 breaths in, 2 breaths out. Do nothing else. Just count. The woman was skeptical. She had tried counting before. She had tried everything. That is it, she asked. Counting my breath is going to cure my insomnia. The monk smiled gently. It is not about curing anything, he said. It is about giving your mind a home. Right now, your mind is like a homeless person wandering through the streets of your thoughts. It has nowhere to rest. No shelter. The breath is a shelter. Just for tonight, let your mind come inside. The woman went home, still skeptical but too tired to argue. That night, she lay down and began counting her breaths. 1. 2. 3. She lost count around 10. Her mind wandered off into worries about work, about her family, about the future. Then she noticed. She had lost count. And instead of getting frustrated, instead of judging herself, she simply started over. 1. 2. 3. She lost count again. She started over. Again and again. And somewhere around the 7th or 8th time she started over, without even noticing it happening, she fell asleep. Not because the breath has magical powers. Not because counting is a secret spell. But because for the first time in weeks, her mind had stopped running. It had something simple to do. Something that required no effort. Something that was already there. This is not a trick. This is not a quick fix for all of life's problems. This is a practice. And like any practice, it takes time. You will forget. You will get distracted. You will lose count 1,000 times. That is not failure. That is the practice. The returning is the practice. Not the staying. The coming back, again and again, with gentleness and without judgment. The beauty of it is that you can start right now. Right where you are. You do not need a special cushion. You do not need incense or chanting or a retreat in the mountains. You do not need to wait until you have more time or less stress. You just need to notice that you are breathing. So let us do that together. Just for a moment. Close your eyes if that feels comfortable. Or keep them open and soften your gaze. And take 3 breaths. Not deep breaths. Not special breaths. Just the breath that is already happening. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Notice how it feels. Not good or bad. Not right or wrong. Just real. That is the anchor. And you can come back to it anytime. In traffic. In a meeting. In an argument. In the middle of the night when you cannot sleep. In the middle of the day when everything feels like too much. The breath is always there, waiting for you to remember. It has never left. It will never leave. It is the most faithful friend you have ever had. You have just been too busy to notice. Now we need to talk about something that might sound strange at first. Something that challenges the way most of us see ourselves. Buddhism teaches that the self, the solid, permanent, unchanging me that you think you are, is not what it appears to be. Now please do not misunderstand. You exist. You are not a hallucination. You are not imagining your own life. But the way you experience yourself, as a fixed, stable entity that stays the same from moment to moment, that is an illusion. Think about it honestly. The person you were at 5 years old is not the person you are now. The cells in your body have been replaced many times over. Your thoughts change from moment to moment. Your feelings shift like weather. Your opinions evolve. Your body ages. So where is this permanent you? Where does it live? If you look for it, really look, you will not find a single thing that stays exactly the same. This is not a philosophical riddle. It is a practical teaching with profound implications for your daily life. Because most of your suffering comes from protecting this imaginary self. I want. I do not like. I am hurt. I am not good enough. I need to be respected. I cannot be seen as a failure. All of that energy, all of that anxiety, is in service of something that does not actually exist as a solid thing. Let me tell you a parable that illustrates this beautifully. A man is walking along a dark path at night. The moon is hidden behind clouds. He sees something on the ground in front of him and freezes instantly. It looks like a snake. His heart pounds. His palms sweat. His breath becomes shallow. He stands there, completely terrified, unable to move forward or backward. Then a friend comes along carrying a lantern. The friend shines the light on the ground. And the man sees clearly that it is not a snake at all. It is just a piece of rope, coiled and dusty. The fear disappears instantly. Not because the man worked hard to let it go. Not because he practiced breathing exercises or repeated positive affirmations. The fear vanished because he saw the truth. The snake was never there. It was only ever a rope. This is exactly what the Buddha meant when he talked about the illusion of the self. The you that feels afraid, the you that feels unworthy, the you that is constantly trying to prove something, constantly seeking approval, constantly worried about what others think. That is the snake. It feels real. It feels solid. It feels like the very center of your existence. But when you shine the light of awareness on it, when you look closely and honestly, you see that it was never really there. It was just a rope. Just a collection of thoughts, habits, memories, and conditioned responses that you mistook for who you really are. So who are you really? You are not the snake. You are the light. The awareness that sees the rope for what it is. That awareness does not have a shape. It does not have a size. It does not have a story or a resume or a list of accomplishments. It just sees. It just knows. It just is. And that awareness is what Buddhism calls your true nature. Your original face before your parents were born, as the Zen masters like to say. Now, you do not have to believe this. Buddhism is not about blind faith. You are invited to test this for yourself. Right now, in this moment, notice that you are aware of these words. You do not have to try to be aware. You just are. That awareness, the simple, effortless fact that you know you are listening, has no problems. It has no anxieties. It has no insecurities. It is just aware. That is your true self. And it has never been broken. It has never been inadequate. It has never needed to be fixed. The only reason you do not feel this all the time is because you are identified with the snake. You are lost in the story. The thoughts. The feelings. The endless commentary. But those are just visitors. They come and they go. The awareness remains. Always. So here is a simple practice. For the rest of today, whenever you notice yourself saying, I am something, I am tired, I am frustrated, I am not enough, pause for just a moment. And add these words silently to yourself. But that is just a thought. I am tired. But that is just a thought. I am frustrated. But that is just a thought. I am not enough. But that is just a thought. You are not denying the feeling. You are not suppressing anything. You are simply no longer letting the thought define you. You are the one noticing the thought. And the one who notices. That one has always been free. It just forgot. And now, slowly, it is beginning to remember. We have all had those moments. Moments where we held on too tightly. To a relationship that was already over. To an identity that no longer fit who we had become. To a dream that had quietly turned into an obligation. We hold on because letting go feels like losing something precious. It feels like failure. It feels like giving up. But Buddhist wisdom offers a radically different perspective. Letting go is not loss. It is return. Return to the natural state of openness that was always there, long before you grabbed onto anything. Think about your hand for a moment. When your hand is open, it can receive anything. It can hold a cup of tea. It can hold a flower. It can hold the hand of someone you love. But when your hand is clenched into a tight fist, it can hold nothing. Not even air. Most of us walk around with clenched fists. Not physically, but mentally and emotionally. We clench our opinions. We clench our grudges. We clench our plans for how life should be. We clench our stories about who wronged us and why. And then we wonder why we feel so tight. So heavy. So completely exhausted. Let me tell you a short story. It is a famous one in Buddhist circles, but it deserves to be heard again. Two Buddhist monks were walking along a riverbank. They came to a place where the current was strong and fast. A woman stood at the water's edge, afraid to cross. She was trembling. One of the monks, without a moment of hesitation, picked her up and carried her across the river. On the other side, he set her down gently, and the two monks continued on their way. Hours passed. Many miles. The second monk was silent, but his silence was heavy. Finally, he could not contain himself any longer. "You know we are not supposed to touch women," he said. "That was against our vows. You have broken the precepts." The first monk smiled. He did not look angry or defensive. He simply said, "I set her down hours ago, back at the riverbank. Why are you still carrying her?" That is the teaching. The first monk performed an act of compassion, and then he let it go. It was over. Done. He did not cling to it. He did not replay it in his mind. The second monk, who had done nothing wrong at all, was still carrying the woman in his thoughts. He was the one who was burdened. He was the one who could not let go. How often do you do exactly that? How often are you still carrying something long after it is over? An argument from 5 years ago that you replay in your mind like a worn-out movie. A mistake you made as a teenager that you still feel ashamed of. A comment someone said that was not even meant to hurt you, but you have polished it into a sharp stone and carried it in your pocket for years. You are still carrying it. And it is heavy. It is so heavy. But here is the good news. You can put it down. Right now. Not by forcing yourself to forget. Not by pretending it does not matter. That never works. But by simply noticing that you are carrying it. And then asking yourself one honest question. Is this useful? Is this thought, this grudge, this old story, helping me live a better life right now? If the answer is no, you do not have to figure out how to let go. You do not need a 10-step plan. You just let go. Like opening your hand. It is not a long process. It is a decision. Made in this single breath. And if you find that you cannot let go, if the thought keeps coming back again and again, do not fight it. Fighting only makes it stronger. Just notice it. And say softly to yourself, "Ah. There is that thought again." Not with frustration. With curiosity. The more you simply notice without reacting, the less power the thought has. Eventually, like a wave that has no wind to push it, it calms down all on its own. Letting go is not weakness. It is the deepest wisdom. Because what you let go of never really belonged to you anyway. It was just something you were carrying. And you have been carrying it for far too long. It is time to open your hand. It is time to rest. We have spent a lot of time together talking about the self. About letting go of attachment. About the anchor of the breath and the freedom of impermanence. But there is another dimension to Buddhist wisdom that is just as important. Perhaps even more important in how you actually live your life. And that is compassion. Not the performative kind. Not the kind you post on social media to show what a good person you are. Not the kind that expects something in return. But real compassion. The kind that does not pick and choose who deserves it. The kind that flows naturally when you stop being so obsessed with your own little story. Here is what the Buddha understood. Compassion is not something you do. It is something you are. When you stop clinging to your own suffering as if it were unique, when you stop seeing yourself as the main character in every drama, something naturally opens inside you. You start to notice something obvious but easily overlooked. Everyone else is struggling too. Everyone else is carrying their own invisible weight. The person who cut you off in traffic. The coworker who snapped at you for no reason. The stranger on the street who looks angry or lost. They are all carrying something. And that recognition changes everything. It softens you. Not because you are trying to be good, but because you see the truth. Let me tell you a story from the Buddhist tradition. It is about a woman named Kisa Gautami. She was a young mother. Her only son died. She was consumed with grief, completely shattered. She carried her son's body from house to house, begging for medicine to bring him back. People thought she had lost her mind. Finally, someone sent her to the Buddha. The Buddha listened to her with great kindness. He did not tell her that her grief was wrong. He did not tell her to get over it. He simply said, "I can give you the medicine you seek. But first, you must bring me a mustard seed from a house where no one has ever died." Kisa Gautami felt hope for the first time. She went from house to house, asking for a mustard seed. At every door, the people were happy to give her one. But when she asked, "Has anyone died here?" every single family had a story. A parent. A child. A grandparent. A sibling. Death had visited every home. Not one house was untouched by loss. Slowly, the realization dawned on her. She was not alone in her grief. Suffering was not a punishment visited upon her alone. It was the shared condition of every human being who has ever lived. She returned to the Buddha, not with a mustard seed, but with a transformed heart. And she became one of his most devoted disciples. This story is not about minimizing your pain. Your grief is real. Your struggles are valid. But the story points to something essential. Compassion begins when you stop seeing your suffering as unique. When you realize that every person you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. That does not excuse harmful behavior. It does not mean you stay in situations that hurt you. But it changes your relationship to the world. You stop taking things so personally. You stop reacting with anger and start responding with curiosity. And that alone brings tremendous relief. So here is a practice. For one day, just one day, try to see every person you encounter as a fellow traveler. Not a stranger. Not an obstacle. Not a threat. Just another human being, doing their best with what they have. You do not have to save anyone. You do not have to fix anything. Just see them. Really see them. And notice how that changes the way you feel. Compassion is not a weakness. It is the strongest force there is. Because it comes from seeing clearly. And seeing clearly is the beginning of freedom. One of the most famous teachings of the Buddha is the middle way. But it is also one of the most misunderstood. Many people hear middle way and think it means being moderate. Not too much, not too little. A little bit of pleasure, a little bit of pain. A bland, gray compromise between extremes. But that is not what the Buddha taught. The middle way is something far more alive and practical than that. Let me explain. Before he became enlightened, the Buddha tried two extreme paths. First, he lived as a prince. He was surrounded by luxury, pleasure, and endless indulgence. He had everything a person could want. And he discovered that this did not lead to peace. The pleasure always faded. The craving always returned. So he left that life behind. Then he tried the opposite extreme. He became an ascetic. He starved his body. He slept on nails. He held his breath until his head pounded. He nearly died. And he discovered that this also did not lead to peace. Torturing the body did not free the mind. It only created more suffering. So finally, he sat down under a tree. He ate food. He rested. He simply paid attention to what was happening inside him. Not indulging. Not punishing. Just observing. That was the middle way. Not a compromise between two extremes, but a completely different approach altogether. Let me tell you a story that illustrates this beautifully. A monk named Sona was struggling with his meditation practice. He was trying too hard. He was pushing himself to the point of exhaustion. He was not sleeping enough. He was not eating properly. He was straining and striving and forcing. And the more he pushed, the more restless and discouraged he became. Finally, he thought to himself, maybe I am not cut out for this. Maybe I should give up and go back to ordinary life. The Buddha heard about Sona's struggle and came to find him. The Buddha asked, Sona, before you became a monk, you were a musician, were you not? Yes, Lord, Sona said. I played the stringed instrument called the veena. When the strings of your instrument were too tight, the Buddha asked, what happened? They would break, Sona said. And when the strings were too loose, they would not make any sound at all. Exactly, the Buddha said. Your practice is the same. Too tight, and you break. Too loose, and you produce no music. The middle way is not about laziness or striving. It is about tuning. Finding the exact tension that allows the music to flow freely. That is the teaching. And you can apply it to every area of your life. Work. Rest. Relationships. Solitude. Effort. Surrender. There is a place where effort is useful, where discipline serves you. And there is a place where effort becomes harm, where pushing only makes things worse. The middle way is not a fixed formula. It is not something you figure out once and then never think about again. It is a felt sense. A living balance. You learn it by paying close attention. By noticing when you are pushing too hard. By noticing when you are avoiding too much. And then making small adjustments. Not once, but again and again and again. For the rest of your life. That is the practice. Not perfection. Not getting it right every time. Just tuning. Just listening. Just being willing to loosen the string when it is too tight. And tighten it just a little when it is too loose. The music is already there inside you. It has always been there. The only question is whether you are tuned enough to let it play. So breathe. Soften. And listen for the sound of your own true note. It is quieter than you think. But once you hear it, you will never mistake it for anything else. Let us use an image together. Something simple but powerful. Imagine your mind is a garden. Not a perfect garden. Not a garden you see in magazines. Just an ordinary, living, breathing garden. And every thought you have is a seed. Some seeds are flowers. Beautiful, nourishing, life-giving. Thoughts of gratitude. Thoughts of kindness toward yourself. Thoughts of patience when things go wrong. But some seeds are weeds. Thoughts of self-doubt. Thoughts of resentment that you have watered for years. Thoughts of fear about a future that has not even arrived yet. And here is the thing about this garden. You did not choose every seed. The wind blew some in. Birds carried others from gardens you have never seen. People walk through your life and drop things without meaning to. Many of the weeds growing in your mind were planted long before you even knew you had a garden to tend. So do not blame yourself for the weeds. That is not the point. The point is what you do now. Because here is the liberating truth. You cannot always control which seeds land in your soil. But you can absolutely choose which ones to water. This is not about suppressing thoughts. That never works. A weed that you try to rip out by force, grabbing at it with both hands, often grows back stronger and more stubborn than before. But a weed that you simply stop watering, that one shrivels on its own. Slowly. Quietly. Not because you fought it, but because you withdrew your attention. So let me ask you gently. What are you watering right now? Not what do you wish you were watering. What are you actually watering with your daily attention, your repeated thoughts, your restless mental energy? Are you watering the thought that you are not good enough? Are you watering the memory of an old hurt that you replay like a familiar song? Are you watering the worry about something that has not happened yet and may never happen? Or are you watering something else? A moment of genuine gratitude from this morning. A small kindness someone showed you yesterday. The simple, astonishing fact that you are alive, breathing, capable of change. You do not have to answer out loud. Just notice. And then make one small choice. Not a big, dramatic, life-changing choice. Just a small one. Turn your attention, even for 10 seconds, towards something that actually nourishes you. The warmth of sunlight on your skin. The sound of rain against the window. The memory of a laugh you shared with someone you love. It does not have to be profound. It just has to be real. Let me tell you a quick story. A farmer had 2 fields. In one field, he grew vegetables. He watered them daily. He pulled the few weeds that appeared. He talked to the plants as if they were his children. That field produced beautiful, healthy food. The second field, he ignored completely. He never visited it. He never watered it. He never pulled a single weed. That field produced nothing but thorns and thistles. When a neighbor asked why he spent so much time in the first field, the farmer laughed. "It is not work," he said. "It is attention. The first field gives me food because I give it my attention. The second field gives me nothing because I give it nothing." It is not complicated. Your mind is exactly the same. The thoughts you pay attention to grow. Not because they are true, but because attention is water. So the real question is not, how do I get rid of bad thoughts? The real question is, what do I want to grow? That one question changes everything. You stop fighting your mind and start cultivating it. And that is a much kinder, much more sustainable path. That is how you tend the garden. One small choice at a time. Not because you are trying to be perfect, but because you deserve to live in a garden that brings you peace. We have been dancing around this word all along, but now let us say it directly. Impermanence. Everything changes. The good news changes. The bad news changes. Your body changes. Your feelings change. The people you love change. The people who hurt you change. Nothing, absolutely nothing, stays the same for very long. Most people hear this and feel afraid. They think, if everything changes, then I have no security. I have no ground to stand on. I am just a leaf blowing in an unpredictable wind. But Buddhism offers a completely different view. Impermanence is not a threat. It is a promise. It is the promise that this too shall pass. Not just the bad moments. The good ones too. But especially the bad ones. The pain you are feeling right now. It will not last forever. The grief that feels like it is going to crush you. It will soften. Not because you pretend it away. Not because you force yourself to be positive. But because that is what pain does. It moves. It changes. It transforms into something else. Sometimes into wisdom. Sometimes into compassion. Sometimes simply into a quieter kind of sorrow that is easier to carry. Let me tell you a short story about a monk who understood this deeply. A monk had a beautiful teacup. It was old, handmade, with a delicate glaze that had taken on a soft, warm color over many decades. He loved this teacup. Not with clinging love. Not with desperate attachment. But with deep, quiet appreciation. One day, a visitor saw the teacup and said, "Monk, you must be very sad when this teacup eventually breaks." The monk smiled. "No," he said. "It has been broken from the very beginning." The visitor was confused. "What do you mean? It is not broken now." The monk picked up the teacup gently, turning it in his hands. "I know that one day it will fall. Or crack. Or simply wear away into dust. I have already said goodbye to it. So when it breaks, I will not be surprised. I will not be devastated. I will simply say, there it is. As expected." That is not pessimism. That is clarity. The monk did not love the teacup less because he knew it would break. He loved it more. Because every moment with it was precious. He did not take it for granted. He did not cling to it as if it would last forever. He simply enjoyed it while it was here. You can do the same with your life. With your relationships. With your health. With your youth. Not by pretending that loss does not hurt. But by recognizing that loss is inevitable. And that the awareness of impermanence makes every single moment more vivid. More alive. More worth showing up for. So here is a simple practice. Pick something ordinary in your life right now. A coffee mug. A pair of shoes. A tree outside your window. And for just a moment, imagine it gone. Not to make yourself sad. But to wake yourself up. To remember that it will not be here forever. And then, with that awareness, look at it again. Notice how it seems different. More present. More precious. That is impermanence doing its work. Not taking anything away. But giving everything back. We live in a world that has forgotten how to stop. Truly stop. Not the kind of stopping where you collapse into bed after a 16-hour day, exhausted and numb. But the kind of stopping where you sit with nothing to do, nowhere to go, no one to impress. Just you. Just the present moment. Just the raw, unfiltered experience of being alive. Think about it honestly. When was the last time you sat in complete silence with no screen, no music, no podcast, no background noise? For most of us, that answer is uncomfortable. We have become terrified of the empty space. We fill every crack of quiet with distraction. Not because we are weak. But because the silence has become unfamiliar. And the unfamiliar feels dangerous. And yet, Buddhist wisdom has always pointed in the opposite direction. It whispers a radical truth that the modern world has nearly erased. The stillness you are avoiding is exactly where you need to go. The silence you fear is the very thing that will set you free. This is not laziness. This is not or avoidance. This is the deepest kind of courage there is. Because when you stop doing, you finally have to face what is really there beneath all the noise. The restlessness that has no name. The boredom you medicate with endless scrolling. The quiet, creeping fear that if you stop moving, you might realize you are not sure where you are going. Or worse, that you have been running from yourself your entire life. Most people would rather do almost anything than sit in silence with their own mind. And that is precisely why the ones who dare to be still are the ones who find what others spend their whole lives searching for. Peace. Clarity. A sense of home that has nothing to do with where you live. Let me tell you one final story. It is short, but it contains everything. A man traveled for months to find a famous Buddhist master. He had read every book. He had studied every teaching. He carried a long list of philosophical questions he believed would unlock the secrets of the universe. When he finally arrived at the master's small, simple hut, he bowed deeply and began to speak. But the master simply pointed to a cushion on the floor and said one word. Sit. The man sat. And they sat together in silence. Not speaking. Not doing. Just being. For 1 hour. For 2 hours. The man grew restless. His legs ached. His questions burned in his mind like fire. But the master sat perfectly still, like a mountain that had forgotten how to move. Finally, the man could not contain himself. Master, he blurted out, I came here for answers. I traveled hundreds of miles. Why won't you speak to me? The master opened his eyes slowly. There was no impatience in his face. Only a deep, warm kindness. I have been speaking the entire time, he said softly. You just have not been listening. The man was confused. Angry, even. But you haven't said a single word. The master smiled gently. Exactly. The silence is the teaching. The stillness is the answer. You have been running from one teacher to another, collecting words like souvenirs, piling concepts on top of concepts. But the truth is not in the words. It is in the silence between them. Sit long enough, and you will hear it. The man stayed. Not because he understood. But because he was too exhausted to run anymore. And over time, sitting in that silence, something in him began to settle. The questions became less urgent. The restlessness began to fade. And one day, without any fanfare or dramatic realization, he noticed that he had found what he was looking for. Not a new idea. Not a better philosophy. Just peace. Simple, ordinary, unshakable peace. That peace is available to you too. Not tomorrow. Not after you finish your to-do list. Not after you fix all your problems and heal all your wounds. Right now. In this breath. In this very moment. You do not have to earn it. You do not have to deserve it. You only have to stop running long enough to notice that it was never missing. It was only buried beneath the noise. So here is the practice. The only one that truly matters now. For 5 minutes today, do nothing. Do not meditate with a goal. Do not sit with a technique. Just be. Let your breath come and go on its own. Let thoughts drift through like clouds across a vast sky. Do not push anything away. Do not hold on to anything. Just rest in the awareness that is already here, before you did anything to earn it. That is the courage of the temple. And that is where you finally come home. So here we are. At the end of this long sitting. But also, if you've been listening with more than just your ears, at the very beginning of something new. We've walked through many teachings today. Craving and the trap of more. The illusion of the self. The anchor of the breath. Compassion that doesn't pick and choose. Impermanence as a promise, not a threat. The courage to sit in stillness when everything in you wants to run. These are not ideas to believe in. They are practices to live. And like any practice, they take time. They take patience. They take 1,000 small returns to the present moment. But here is what I want you to carry with you when you leave this video. The path is not somewhere else. It is not in a monastery across the world. It is not in a book you haven't read yet. It is not in a future version of yourself who has finally healed every wound and answered every question. The path is right here. In this ordinary, unremarkable, completely miraculous moment. The fact that you are breathing. The fact that you are aware of these words right now. That is the path. That has always been the path. You don't need to become a different person to walk it. You just need to stop running. Stop pretending you already know everything. Stop waiting for permission to be at peace. The peace is not hiding from you. It is what remains when you stop chasing. So here is the only practice that truly matters now. And it is the simplest one you will ever hear. For 1 minute today, do nothing. Not meditating with a goal. Not sitting with a technique you read about. Just be. Let your breath come and go on its own. Let thoughts drift through like clouds across a vast sky. Don't push anything away. Don't hold on to anything. Just rest in the awareness that is already here, before you did anything to earn it. You will forget this. That is fine. You will get caught up in life again. That is also fine. But now you know the way back. And the way back is always the same. A single breath. A single moment of stillness. A single recognition that you are not your thoughts. You are the one noticing them. That recognition is freedom. And it has never been absent. Only overlooked. Thank you for sitting with us at Monk's Temple. Not because you had to. But because something in you knew it was time to come home. May you walk in peace. May you rest in awareness. And may you remember, in every breath you take, that the temple is not a place you visit. It is the stillness you already are. Until next time, breathe.